Hello book friends, welcome or welcome back. My name is Mel and it is lovely to have you here. Today I wanted to chat to you about books that are about books. I have a strong passion and love for reading books that are either written about writers, set in bookshops, set in publishing houses, set in libraries. I love it all. And I have an inkling sometimes throughout the year to just pick up those types of books because they just feel something in my soul. So I thought if I enjoy those books, surely someone out there also enjoys them. So I thought I would share with you a few books that I have read, and then I would also share with you a few books that I keep on my shelf for when that feeling passes and I want to grab something new. Let's get straight into it. The first book that I want to talk about is Beach Read by Emily Henry. I really enjoyed this book. I'm not usually a big Emily Henry fan, however this one really did hit the mark for me. This is about January and she is a romance writer. She ends up at this house that through circumstances that she doesn't still really understand is now hers, and she has a decision to make with being there, but she's kind of hopeful that the fact that it's a new environment, it might actually help her writer's block. Once she gets there, she realizes that she has a bit of a grumpy next door neighbor. His name is Augustus and he is actually a best-selling literary fiction author. They come up with this idea that if she writes literary fiction and he writes romance, maybe they'll both magically fix each other's writer's block. I really enjoyed this book because there was so much banter. There was a fair bit of depth to it as well. Like there's a process of grief that's kind of running through there, and understanding why Augustus writes those types of books as well is really fascinating. One of my favorite scenes and memories from I audiobooked this, so listening to the book, was when January and Augustus would come and meet on their back patio and they would do like little writing sprints together. It wasn't necessarily the fact that they were talking about what they were doing. It was just that they were spending that time together in each other's company. They're in their own minds, but they were doing it together, and it was just really touching and really warming and really lovely. So would highly recommend that book. Then we have Daydream by Hannah Grace. I ebooked this and I loved it. This book is about Hallie and Henry, and Hallie is an introvert. She works at a bookshop, she runs a book club. She's kind of like the do-gooder in her family, I suppose. She's always helping people, always making sure everyone's on track, always being the peacekeeper. Her dream and her goal is to write her own book. She's kind of struggled to get there until Henry comes into her life. Henry is the captain of the ice hockey team and he needs to keep his grades up. He seeks out Haley, they bump into each other, turns out she's really smart and she's able to help tutor him, but he's really fantastic because he pushes Haley to start thinking about herself and to stop helping other people achieve their goals just for a moment while she achieves her own. This is also really great because there's a bit of disability awareness in here. Henry lives with ADHD, so it's kind of woven in of how he navigates that into his learning and into his reading as well. I loved the bookish element. This is one that I read in 24 to 48 hours, so I would happily go and read this again. Then it would not be appropriate for me to talk about books without talking about my favorite, which is The Book Thief by Marcus Zusak. I own 2 copies of this book because The Book Thief is my favorite book that I try to reread every single year. This book is harrowing. It is set in World War II Nazi Germany. We are following Liesel, who is a young girl, and she has lost her mum, she has lost her brother, and she is now placed with an older couple. This older couple try and keep to themselves. They're quite elderly and they don't generally like to have any attention brought to them or seem like they're causing any trouble, but due to some of the connections that they have, they end up smuggling a Jew into their basement to try and keep him safe. This Jew, he is incredible to Liesel. Along with her papa, he teaches her how to read. He teaches her about books and about the world that's out there and what's happening. But one of the most poignant scenes in the book is when there's a book burning happening in the middle of town and Liesel steals a book. It is a book that is not allowed to be consumed because there are only certain books in place that the dictatorship are approving for people to read, and with Liesel stealing that book, she's kind of rebelling against that. This book I could not recommend enough. The movie is also fantastic, so 10 out of 10 will always be a 10 out of 10. Then we have The Storied Life of AJ Fickery. This book is very beautiful. This is about a man who has just experienced a really big loss. He runs a bookshop and one day there's a young woman who comes in with a baby. She's really struggling, he can tell that, and for her, she's kind of internally thinking thinking, maybe this is a safe place that I can actually leave my baby because I'm not capable of taking care of them at the moment. So the next few days, or it might even be the next night, this baby ends up on his doorstep and, you know, asking him to take care of it, to give it a good life. Initially, he's really struggling through his own grief in understanding whether he wants to live and where he finds his joy and where he finds his hope. He also doesn't think that he could be a single parent, but once you see the community and the village that starts to come together to support him taking this child in and giving it a safe home, it's really beautiful to watch the relationship that he starts to develop with the child, how the child then grows up in a bookshop and grows up with him. It's really beautiful. If you have read Tomorrow and Tomorrow and Tomorrow by Gabrielle Zevin, you will know how attached you get to her characters and that they feel so real and you have a bond with them. So that's how I feel with this book. It will never ever leave my brain. Then we have The Mystery Writer by Solari Gentile. This book is fantastic. If you want a standalone mystery book that just has all of the good stuff, including books, then you need to try this. This is about Theo, and Theo moves to the US to pursue their writing career. When they're having a little bit of time in a cafe doing some writing, they're approached by what happens to be a best-selling fiction author. As Theo lets them into their life, they get to know one another a little bit more. This best-selling author doesn't really share a lot about their life, but they're taking in a lot about Theo's. After they've been catching up for months and months, this author ends up dead. And it is such a shock to Theo. But then Theo starts getting tangled up in all of what is the fictional dark side of the agencies, the publishers, all of the writing of the books, the whole community that this person was involved in. It becomes really fascinating. It's really fast-paced. It was just the perfect read. I would highly recommend this. And Solari is also a returning author to our Readers Festival this year, so I'm very excited for that. Then we have The Bookshop by Penelope Fitzgerald. This is technically a classic. This has also been changed into a movie. It's teeny tiny. I would highly recommend it for a weekend or afternoon read. This is about a woman who, similar to AJ Fickery, has also experienced a loss. She is opening a bookshop in a small English seaside town. However, the town that she's in, they're very resistant to change. Tends to be an elderly demographic that's living in this town, and she's finding quite a lot of resistance because there's also another bookshop in town. So she's kind of like the opposing bookshop. It's full of dry English banter and humor. It does feel slow at times, but I think it kind of just really captures the slow-paced, quite calm environment that you're in, apart from the fact that these people are niggling at her all of the time. The movie is quite slow-paced as well, but it's very cozy. Then the last one that I have read that I need to mention is The Other Bridget by Rachel Johns. This was fantastic. I thoroughly enjoyed this book. This is about Bridget, who is named after Bridget Jones. She is an Australian librarian. Her library is experiencing some shuffles and some changes in management, and that's kind of making her feel a little bit unsteady. But then it's also the fact that she's kind of in her mid to late 30s and she feels like she is a hopeless romantic and she's never going to find love. Then her Italian barista that she sees every day starts to become a little bit more friendly, so she doesn't really know whether she should pursue that. But she also ends up with a really cranky next door neighbor, and his name is Sully. He is noisy, he is frustrating, and he just gets under her skin like nobody else does. Turns out Sully is also a family relative to one of the elderly ladies that's in her regular book club, and so with some older lady meddling in a group, they're trying to get Bridget and Sully together. So that's very entertaining as well. I have to mention too, if you want a book about books, this is like the ultimate, because Rachel Johns, kudos to her, she's the ultimate Australian author because she name drops between 20 to 30 book titles and book authors inside this book. Obviously, Bridget is a librarian, so she has a wide array of knowledge around books. Rachel has just filtered that into a whole fiction novel. Rachel is also going to be attending our Readers Festival this year, which I am so excited about. That will have been announced this past week before this video goes live. So if you're around the region, make sure you come and visit Rachel. Now I am going to give you the books that I have sitting on my bookshelves, which are books about books. I'm literally just going to tell you the title, the author, and kind of the genre that it sits in, because ultimately you know what it's already going to be delivering. So we have Death of a Bookseller by Alice Slater. This is a crime fiction. Meet Me in the Margins by Melissa Ferguson, which is a contemporary fiction. The Printed Letter Bookshop by Catherine Ray, which is also a contemporary fiction. A Month of Sundays by Liz Bursky, which is also a contemporary fiction. And very kindly, Alan and Unwin have allowed me to read Love Overdue by Ali Berg and Michelle Claus, which is coming out very, very soon, in a month or two, I want to say. So that one is on the very soon TBR pile. I'm super excited to read that, and that is a contemporary romance. Okay, book friends, those are my books about books recommendations for you. If you have some recommendations, please drop them in the comment box below, because I would love to know. I'm always stashing up my pile of books about books on my TBR, so I would love that from you. If you've enjoyed this video, be sure to like and subscribe, and I guess I'll see you in the next one very soon. Bye.